All right, and we are live. Welcome to another episode of Design Streaming Sessions. I'm your host, Verma Henry, and this show is brought to you by Do Better UX and all of that good stuff. This is your number one place to learn all good things about UX design, product design, and all of those other cool things within your UX design career. It's really a no BS approach to, how much we bring content to you and, sort of like how we actually give the information that you need to know and you need to learn as you get into your UX career or as you level up your UX career. So today's one I want to converse before we jump right into it. It's really a repeat of a live streaming session that we're supposed to do sometime last week. I think for Friday's session last week or so. But we didn't press record. We didn't press go live on YouTube. Let me just see if we did do that this time around. Yes, we did. So we didn't record go live on YouTube. We had it, running in our OBS and all our systems, and our cameras were, showing us that we're live and, giving a signal to YouTube, but we had actually not went live on YouTube itself. So that is the little conversion. It's almost like a replay of it for us, but to you definitely haven't seen this before. So yeah, we're just gonna treat it as if we never saw it. I think I'm coming up with some sort of throat problem. Hope you're staying safe wherever you are with this whole pandemic happening around us. So if you're new to this and you haven't been part of any of our live design streaming sessions, and you are just getting introduced to the brand Do Better UX, we are a UX design training company based in South Africa, and we do different type of sort of like radical types of content to help you learn UX design. So we have a podcast called Not a UX Designer. We have weekly posts that we put out on our blog over at dobetterux.com, and other really cool, interesting things that we do with our community over on LinkedIn. So if you're interested in that whole thing as a package, you want to check out our podcast or our community over at LinkedIn, check out our website dobetterux.com. That way you'll be able to see all the other things that we have happening and interact with the ones that you're actually interested in. We understand that not everybody is a reader or a listener or wants to interact on a certain community, but we have a fantastic community of UXers, design thinkers, and really just brilliant human beings over on LinkedIn. So look up Do Better UX. You'll be able to find like our page, but you'll also be able to find our LinkedIn group. So if you use LinkedIn, let's have the conversation there. So cool. Let's jump into the topic of the day today. We are talking about UX design versus UI design, what that all means. So we are going to be covering what the main differences are. We're going to take, sort of like a small dive into what UX is. We're going to, sort of like take another small dive into what UI is, what, it all entails there. And we're going to sort of like talk about what to look out for when you're getting into UX design and what to consider when you're building a UX UI team. I know these terms are interchangeably used by most people nowadays, a UX UI designer and a UX designer and all of that stuff. So let's unpack it in today's design streaming session. So you'll see me sort of like looking at this screen here. I'm just trying to monitor if everything is going well. Actually, let me move over my my YouTube screen here as well. I see it says chat has been disabled. So I don't know if you will be able to check out the chat if you're joining us on the live streaming session. I hope you are able to interact with us in some way. You can check us over on our Twitter profile as well. I wanted to go live on IG on Instagram now, just to let the people over at Instagram know that we are live streaming. So let's see, how do I go live? Do I press this thing? And okay, maybe story. How do you go live on Instagram? I can't believe I cannot figure out how to do this. Whoa. All right, this is crazy. Can't go live. That's the flash. That's a photo. Wow, this is me trying to go live on Instagram, guys. This is so embarrassing. Why is it I can't go live? Is it that I can't go live on this profile? Let me check out another profile. Wow. Okay. All right, so you go to story. Okay. All right. Instagram tips 101. If you want to go to live, go to story, and then there you will be able to add, share one. I already have some here, so I don't know how to add a new one. Add to your story, live. All right, finally got it. We're going live on Instagram. Yes, this is an old iPhone 6. Just checking connection and doing all those cool things. I'm gonna put the Instagram guys here on my water bottle because I don't have any form of sort of like oh cool, we're live on Instagram, guys. Instagram meet YouTube, YouTube meet Instagram. If you're checking this out on our Instagram live, I just wanted to do this and invite you guys over to our YouTube channel. We are streaming live right now. Our chat is disabled. If you're getting annoyed by this and you're watching us live on YouTube, I'm sorry, but we are live on Instagram and we're live on YouTube. So if you are interested in learning more about what are the differences between UX and UI design and what are the core things, we are going to be covering some of those things right now over on our YouTube channel. So if you're watching on YouTube, don't freak out. I'm talking to the Instagram guys. So yeah, I'm going to leave this here for a short while just for, for people who are joining. Let's see if I can position this in a better way. All right, I think the folks over on Instagram can see me. So yeah, I want to talk today about the differences between these two disciplines, if I can put them in that way, and what are the core things that are different around them, and what are some of the things that you should be checking out or looking out for. So let's jump right into it. So let's start with the main differences, right? What is UI design? I think, the main thing is that UI design focuses mainly on the interface, what people are actually using. So the thing that, the user is going to be interacting with, and UX design focuses on the user and their needs. So those are two different things. So UX design sort of like seeks to solve more. It seeks to sort of like go in there and actually empathize with the user and try and figure out what are the user needs and how can we help this person achieve their goals. And then the UI sort of like helps achieve that goal, being defined and detected by some of the findings that are coming out of the UX space, after we've figured out what are these people's needs and et cetera, et cetera. So that is the main differences between the two, right? So UI design is a practice, and UX design is more of a process, right? When I say that, I mean, UI design is more of something that, can easily be learned, and UX design is more of a process that has got many different things defined and can be defined in many different ways. So each team and each UX design company and each UX team all have their own sorts of ways of how they do UX. They all have their own defined UX design process that works for them, that is optimized for the type of work that they do or the clients that they service, or just how they find the best way of working and taking out work. So I see that I'm still live here on Instagram. I'm just gonna stop the Instagram feed because I won't be able to monitor both of them. I hope this stays somewhere after I press end. So yeah, Instagram folks, if you're watching this, do check us out over on YouTube. Look out for Do Better UX, and you'll be able to find our YouTube channel. Let's end that live streaming there. Let's share that to IGTV, and boom, booyah, something is happening there. So while that is saving and uploading, let's go back to our conversation. So those are the two main differences between user interface and user experience design. Now, user interface it's a borrowed term. It has not always been on our digital devices or that type of thing. It has been like a pilot's cockpit, right? That is a whole user interface given to the pilot to be able to achieve the goal of flying the plane, and the user experience within that cockpit is getting in the cockpit, finding the right things, being able to reach around the knobs and all of that stuff, right? That is the user experience, and where they are placed and how they're able to read them, all that is the user experience. So those are the main two differences we have between UI design and UX design. Now let's get a little bit deeper into what UX design is. Let me maybe change the music. Actually, I kind of feel a little bit pumped by this music. Let me leave it on. For now. So let's get into UX design. What is a UX designer expected to do? What are some of the things that you would expect if you are looking to get into a UX design role and you have no idea what it is? Or maybe you're a UX UI designer who's trying to learn the curves of getting more into UX and what it entails. And so I'm just going to split it up for you so that you can understand it a little bit better, and it's something that you can relate to. So some of the main things that you find in UX design are user research, things like ideation and validating ideas, ideation and validating ideas, working with the whole team and not just a specific part of the team. So you should expect to work with the whole team. You should expect to do things like creating user journeys and wireframing, etc. And there's also a big reporting role. So let me break down those a little bit more. So user research, number one. So user research can be anything from understanding the market, understanding what the users' needs are, having user interviews with the users, doing usability testing on certain prototypes that you've already built. This is a way for you to understand your user and how you can actually define what the user needs are for you to be able to ideate and solve for those specific needs that your users are having. So that is user research. It's a big part of UX design. UX design is about understanding your users. So that is a very, very, very big part of UX design, user research. Number two, ideation and validating ideas. Now, there are many ways of ideating and validating ideas. Here at Do Better UX, we always preach about design sprints. We think design sprints are a perfect recipe and a process for you to be able to come from idea to a validated idea by within 3 to 5 days, depending on the flavor of the design sprint. I'm trying to do this live streaming with during a power cut, running on generators and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe we might not have the best signal, but hopefully what is recorded after the fact, the actual output recording is much better than what the live streaming could be. I'm expecting people might experience a little bit of buffering and etc, etc. So yeah, if you can comment right now and you'd like to share anything, I'm sorry about that, but yeah, please leave a comment after the fact. If you're watching the replay, ask us questions or anything that you would like us to improve or talk about, share topics or people you'd like to see on the show. Anyway, let's get back. So ideation and idea validation is something that you're expected to do as a UX designer. This is something that you can achieve by running workshops within your team, and this sort of like spills over to the next point of working with a whole team, but you really want to be able to have the input of everybody within your team, from the stakeholders to understanding the product space that you're designing for, as well as the user needs. We sort of like tend to be advocates for the users, and that is what we need to be as UX designers, so that we help companies understand what their user needs are. But it's really a delicate dance between understanding what the product and what the business is trying to do, and how do you match that within the user needs, and actually solve for that specific problem, both for the business and for the user that is going to be using that specific product or service that the business is offering. And you really have to work with the whole team for you to be able to understand all the moving parts, from the stakeholders, the executives that are responsible for that thing. You need to understand what is the product vision, where are they going with this whole thing. You need to have them within the loop, within your ideation and idea validation. That's why the design sprint is, again, such a great way of doing this. If you want to know more about design sprints, check out our website, dobetterux.com, or check out our podcast, Not a UX Designer. We have some posts and things that we've done there to cover design sprints quite extensively, how to get started, how to sell them, how to run them. And if you want to know more about them, please let us know. We are more than happy to do more content around design sprints. So you want to have the whole team to be able to understand the landscape of the problem holistically and what everybody is trying to achieve. Again, when you're working as a UX designer, you need to be able to translate what you're trying to achieve to the designer who's actually going to build the user interface for this, and be able to help that designer translate the message further onto the developers as well. So it's a chain of people that you really need to be able to speak to and articulate properly how you're going to solve this. And by bringing the whole team together, you sort of like get rid of all the weird questions that executives ask you further down the line around how did you get to this point. They are part of the process, they are part of the ideation and validation process, so nothing is new to them. Everything is done with the customer that you're serving at that point, for the client or for the rather user that you're designing for at the end of the day. Other things you might be expected to do as a UX designer is create user journeys and wireframes, just to document some of those things that you're discovering and how they're gonna work. Of course, there's an extensive part of reporting and playing back all of the findings and all of the interactions that you have with users. Within your research, within your ideation and validation, what are some of the hypotheses that you had, and what are the results from meeting with customers and users for that specific product. What are the outcomes out of testing some of those hypotheses. So there is a big reporting piece to it. I hope I'm not getting sick, but my throat is really getting horsey. But it's not an excuse for me to kill it on these live design streaming sessions. Whether the network is trying to bring me down or this cough is trying to bring me down. It's not really a cough, it's just like a throat irritation, really. I'm just gonna keep on rocking. Let us know if you like this. If you like this, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to this so that when we do go live, you know that we are live. You actually don't miss us on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when we do go live on design streaming sessions here over Do Better UX. Cool. So moving on swiftly, let's talk about UI now. So that is not the extensive list of what you should be expecting to do as a UX designer or the skills that are involved in UX design. But I think those are some of the core and the major ones that you should be thinking about, at least if you're getting into UX design. Now, let's switch over to UI design. So when you're in UI design, you hear things like look and feel, user interface, screen design, design systems, front-end development, and working closely with developers. Now, let us unpack those a little bit more. What is a look and feel, and what is the user interface? So you're expected to be in charge of the look and feel, how the typography looks like, how do you apply the branding that the company already has onto this interface that you have. So think about it, maybe in the form of an app or in the form of a website, but a user interface could be sort of like your old school what do you call them? They're not game consoles, man. Your old school coin slot machine games where you have the buttons and you can move the joystick, and so that whole thing is a user interface. There's a place where you can interact and put in your coin in the slot. The game will start. You've got some buttons to interact with the characters on the screen, etc., etc. That is a user interface, right? So in this context, we're probably talking about an app or a website or something of that nature. I understand that people are getting into voice now, and that is also a user interface. Voice is definitely a user interface. It's a screenless user interface. So if you're doing UI design, I think these are some of the things that you need to consider around the changes around the interfaces that we are actually using currently, and how that is going to change as we go into the future of AR and VR and all of these cool things that will make our lives better, but will probably render some of the basic things like apps and websites almost useless and old-fashioned over the next 10-15 years. I don't know. I think apps will still be a big thing. I think websites will still be a valid thing in 10-15 years time. But I think if you are getting into the UI world and you want to really stand out and kickstart your UI design career, you need to think about some of those things around how the landscape of user interfaces, how we especially around how we interact with computers is really changing, right? So you will be responsible for how the person actually interacts with this service or this specific product, whether it's a Google Voice product or it's an app or it's a website. Right now, let's just keep it in the context of an app or website, just to keep things clear and straightforward, right? So you're expected as a UI designer to look after how you apply the brand. How does that translate to the user interface actually looks and feel. You're are responsible of making the user interface very intuitive and nice and desirable to use, right? Some of the smallest things that we put into design might not go as the biggest things that are noticed out there, but just of the small interaction designs, where you have a little bit of an animation of an animation when you have a pop-up bubble on your phone. It's not just like it's just appearing there, and those things make our experiences more pleasurable, hence making our experiences better. So those are some of the things that you should be thinking about when you are when you're a UI designer rather, and those are some of the things that you will be expected to look after as well. So other than those things, you're looking at designing the main screens of whatever product it is. So whether it's web design screens or whether it's, the app screens, for iOS and Android, and managing all of this stuff, in design systems, where you have components and all of those other things, so that, you have a easy reusability and management of, how do you apply a button and change its color throughout 800, 1,000 screens of an app that you have, right? So if you want to learn more about design systems, I think it's a topic that we covered at some point here on the live design streaming sessions. So if you check out our YouTube channel, you should be able to find those. I should find a way to like put in inserts here in the live streaming session. All right, anyway, I will try and figure out, how do I recommend these things to you. But I'm sure that we do have a video where we spoke about design systems, a live streaming session that we did. UI designers also dive a little bit and dance into the world of front-end development. So things like CSS and HTML, are pretty, familiar territories and grounds that we see, UI designers getting into, especially, some people really enjoy, being technical and jumping into a little bit of code and stuff like that. So you find some designers are pretty proficient at CSS, JavaScript, and HTML, just to help translate their designs from, the raw design form into an actual interface that can then be made functional by the back end developers, hooking on services and other things that actually bring it on to life. That is something that you might want to consider. Maybe you're coming from a coding type of background and you want to be a UI designer. That could be a big advantage for you to have, getting into the UI design space. Cool. Unlike the UX designer, you will probably be working very closely with the UX designer, when you're getting the wireframes and screens from them and the, customer journeys and, whatever recommendations it is that they found out. And you'll probably be working very closely with the developers as well, because you're almost like the translation between the UX and the thing actually coming into reality, into life. So you might want to be directing some of those conversations and those things that are happening over on the development side of things as well, but you're actually, translating what, has been defined by the user research and some of the findings that come out of, the UX design part of the process. So unlike working with the whole team like UX designers would do, I'm not saying that you shouldn't work with the whole team. I think it's definitely something that will help you not only get noticed, but help you drive some of the decisions that are made around the product as well, and how the product can be designed. I don't believe totally in people working in silos. I know I will say later on in the show, UX UI design is not really a real thing, because a lot of UX UI designers are actually UI designers trying to get into UX, and vice versa, and etc. But anyway, I believe that people should wear multiple hats and be able to do multiple things. So moving on swiftly to the next point. I wonder if we're getting any love on our Instagram. Oh, I actually didn't post this. Let me post this title live on YouTube. All right, let's post this. All right. The network is terrible. It's absolutely atrocious. So we're really trying to cover, the basic social media channels. For us is LinkedIn. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram, and we are trying to We've recently hired a new team of, editors to help us with our podcast and, editing videos and all of that good stuff. So do expect to have a higher quality of content, and as well a better consistency, I would say, because we haven't been able to go live. We started by going live every weekday, and we stopped going live for about a week and a bit, and we started doing this 3-day live design streaming sessions, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we've been pretty consistent at that over the past 2 weeks and a bit now. So yeah, we're super excited to have a lot more people on the team helping us out, churn out this content and information to you to help you get into UX design or take your UX design career to the next level by just giving you radical information that is out there that you don't get in your traditional ways of, online courses and other things like that. We'll tell you things that are up to date, that are happening now. And I think, people will benefit quite a lot from, these live streaming sessions that we do, 3 times a week. And that's why we do them. So if you like that type of stuff, please do like and subscribe to our channel, and that way you'll be notified every time we go live or post something new on the Do Better UX YouTube channel. Cool. Moving on swiftly, I want to talk a little bit about what to look out for when looking into getting into UX design yourself. So you want to get into UX design right now. What are some of the things that you really need to think about and look out for? So the first thing is UX and UI are 2 different things and can be played by the same person, but should you really be doing that? It's really up to you. What sort of person are you? Are you, more of a creative? Are you somebody who is more interested into unpacking the problem and really, speaking with people and finding out what the problem is and, actually identifying where things are going wrong? Then that sounds like a UX design personality for me. It doesn't matter what other career that you're coming from. If you want to consider, things like UI design, you really need to be coming from a technical side of knowing how to use design software and other things like that. Otherwise, it will be a really hard learning curve for you to get into, sort of like a UX UI design role without any background of, design software, etc. But right now we just want to, cover getting into UX. You need to consider that these are 2 different things. You don't have to do them at the same time. A lot of companies are looking for UX UI designers, but I think there's a huge market for just UX designers that really know what they're doing and, have taken an in-depth in-depth learning curve to upskill themselves and really provide value for the people that they are, looking to work with or working with at the moment. So having said that, those are that is the first thing. The second thing is that there's a really small salary gap. A lot of people think that there's a huge salary gap between UI designers and UX designers. There is a very small salary gap, having UX designers getting paid a little bit more than UI designers, and some people want to put UX UI design together so that they can maybe cover and battle this gap. But I don't think that if you put yourself in that situation with the responsibilities that you'll be having in that one role, playing all those, wearing both those hats, it's worth for you, unless if you really working in a team where they don't expect so much UX work from you and you can really balance it out. But typically you would find yourself in a space where you are being asked to do a hell lot more than what you bargained for, and you might not want to put yourself into that space. And the third thing is, do you like driving conversations and decisions making, and are you creative? So this goes back to the first point a little bit, okay, so do you like speaking with stakeholders, with, with executives, with marketing people, with the whole team, right, to help them ideate and discover things? Do you see yourself standing in front of a room, running a workshop, and sort of like driving the conversations and how the decisions are made? So if you're that type of person, then UX could be the right thing for you. If you're not that type of person, you're more of an introverted person, I think there are always ways for you to get out of, sort of like your introverted type of personality to be able to facilitate and host, workshop sessions and ideation sessions with stakeholders, and being able to, stand in front of people. I'm not necessarily saying that is not for you, but those are some of the things that you need to think about. Are you really that person who is into driving conversations and decision making? Or are you creative? Are you more of the design type of person? Who might be better fitted in a more UI type of role, without having to deal with interacting with people and try to get decisions made and keep the ball rolling, etc. etc. Cool. So those are some of the things that I think you need to consider when you're getting into the UX design space. And the next point that I want to cover is what to consider when building a UX UI team, right? So there are a lot of companies, big corporates, startups, all sorts of different companies that are looking into hiring or building their own UX UI team to have that capability in-house, to have that continuous iterative process happening on their product, so that they don't need to keep on outsourcing such a critical feature of their business, right? What are some of the things that you need to consider? So think about what is it that you need, right? Consider the separate roles and the functions that come out of these things, as I've mentioned throughout this session. Consider some of those things. What are those things? What do you actually need? Do you need user research done? Have you done that ideation and piece? And you need more of a person to help you put beautiful, interactive, desirable things together. What is it exactly that you need? Because hiring people could be a huge commitment, and having the wrong person or the wrong function on your team that you actually didn't really figure out what is it that you need, could be a big burden for your company in the long run. So figure out what is it that you need, what is it that you need on your team, what is it that you need to be solved on your team. Do you need somebody to help you sort of like drive decisions and drive the conversations, the design conversations, somebody who can help you really jump in there and be an advocate for the user and really pump in the insights and the things that you need to be able to drive and turn your product around? Or do you need somebody who can take your product that's already there, that you've done quite a lot of research on already and have a lot of customer feedback on, to help you implement some of those changes and feedback and some of the things that are happening within that user interface? So think about those two things, right? And think about it in a way that what is it that you can outsource and what is it that you might actually need to have in-house, because you might not need to have both these roles in-house. You might not actually need to have any of them in-house. So what is it that you can outsource, maybe have those insights coming in from a UX design perspective, and have somebody who is actually doing the changes for you, who understands your brand better, and maybe you want to really look after how your look and feel and how your brand is and how your brand is communicated within your product. and maybe you want to have, better quality control on that and have a UI designer in-house, or maybe you want to have better quality control on the research, and you can always outsource the design to anybody else out there, even more junior people. Once you have defined what the solution is, anybody can put the thing together for you. It doesn't necessarily need to be a high caliber research company or research team to help you solve those problems, and then anybody can help you put the UI together. There are some really incredible junior people out there who can build beautiful user interfaces, and with the right UX advice and the UX team behind them, you can really turn out to have great products out there. The next point that I want to cover is that most UX UI designers, I mentioned about this a little bit earlier on in the streaming sessions, but most UX UI designers are just good designers and are still learning UX, or the other way around. They are sort of like people coming from the graphic design space or web design space. They've adopted this UI type of term on their they've adopted this UI term for their specific role, and they're getting into this UX space, but they don't really know what UX design is, right? And they're still learning what UX design is. I'm not saying that they aren't people who are UX UI designers that really know what they're doing, but I've seen that majority of the people that I've interacted with, whether on LinkedIn, whether online on Twitter or other places like that, it's either they sort of like generalize in everything too much, and there isn't really a depth, is substance in whether UX or UI stuff, or they're really deep in UI and there's a lot of very shallow UX knowledge around that, but they slap it on there because that is what companies are looking for, and those are the roles that companies are advertising for, right? Companies are looking for these unicorns that can do everything in one place, from user research to actually designing the interface. And those unicorns do exist, but like I'm saying, unicorns, right? They're very rare to find, and if you do find them, please do keep them because they're really rare people to find. So the next thing is considering that UX can help you solve your biggest problems within your company. So I think if you're thinking about building a UX sort of like UX UI capacity within your business, I think it's definitely the way to go. I think you should be hiring UX designers in 2020 and beyond to help you really understand your users, your customers, and be able to build better products that actually serve and answer your customers and your customers' biggest needs, actually making it more viable and desirable for people to actually use your product and have a fit of it in their lives somewhere somehow. I think those are some of the biggest things that you should be considering when you are looking into building a UX UI team. I'm just going to put that in quotes. Whether you're just going to go with, sort of like, in-house UX designers or in-house UI designers, or outsource both of them, or outsource one or the other, it's really up to you. But those are some of the things that you should be considering. It's not the extensive list of cores, but those are some of the main things that I thought are important for me to mention in this live streaming session today, around if you're considering hiring UI designers or UX designers for building your own team in-house and building your own capability to help you build better products. So that's it for today's live streaming session, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you liked this session, please do consider joining us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Check out dobetterux.com, where you can sign up for a weekly newsletter and check out some of the other content that we produce, like our podcast and some of the posts that we have. And you can also find a gateway to our LinkedIn community of design thinkers, really amazing people that we have there. If you are interested in this type of content, or you'd like to suggest some of the content or suggest some improvements, just leave us a comment in the comment section below, if you're watching this after the fact, of course. Until Friday, I'm your host, Farma Henry, and I'm out.